Hello to my English 102 online students. I am here to preview week 4 for you. I also want to remind you while I'm here to check on our announcements regularly. You can see that there are several announcements. We're having a pretty good response rate. We started out with everybody checking their announcements. We've slacked off a little bit. Make sure you are absolutely checking these announcements regularly. They are how I communicate with you and how I tell you what's going on. So make sure you're engaging with those. I also want to remind you that we do have regular help sessions available and that there's information on how to reach me here. I am online in Zoom on Mondays at noon, Tuesdays and Thursdays at noon, Wednesdays at 8:30, and Fridays at 9 a.m. So make sure that you are using those. If you need help, if you're feeling lost, if you have questions. Now do keep in mind that I don't just sit in Zoom all day waiting for students to log in. That would take up my computer and not allow me to do the rest of my work. So if you need to see me outside of these times, don't just log into Zoom. I'm not there. But if you do need to see me and these times don't work for you, send me an email at this address right here, and I will reply to you and set up a time to meet in Zoom. All right, so just don't forget about that help being available to you. You always use this link. Some people have tried using the app and have had a hard time entering the sessions. And when I've asked them to use the Zoom link in Blackboard, it's worked. So I don't know what the deal is with that. I blame Zoom for that, but I know that this link does work and does get you to our help sessions. So go ahead and use those. We are still working on the poetry things, and we are going through some things in week 4. Actually, we're going to spend a little time with you today going over some things in week 4. And the first one is this theme versus thesis. We're working on turning our observations about theme into thesis. Now, a theme is just an idea that runs through a set of poems, like racism might appear in a bunch of the poems that we read, or challenges, or hard times, or luck, or choices. Any of those are themes that we can see happening in more than one of the poems that we've read. But now we're working on turning those themes into a thesis statement. And a thesis statement is one that's arguable. It's something that somebody might not immediately agree with you about. And if you're sitting there thinking, oh no, I can't say that, she might disagree with me, you've found your thesis, right? So we're looking for things where somebody might potentially disagree with you. We want to move away from these water is wet, death makes people sad kind of ideas, right? So we want to get to something that's arguable. So if you make a statement and somebody else might respond with, well, yeah, of course, that's a good starting point. You've observed something that's good and strong, but now we want to push and we want to aim for a thesis, which is where somebody might say, well, maybe, but I don't know. I'm not sure I agree with that. And then you use the poems to back up that thesis. So this handout goes over some examples. I'll let you read them on your own, but let's take a look at one together. Let's take a look at this third one. Theme statement. All 3 poets show how poverty makes life hard. Well, yeah, of course poverty makes life hard. It stinks to be struggling with poverty. Everybody knows that. Nobody would argue with it. It's a good theme, though. We've observed a strong theme here. Thesis statement might be that all 3 poets show that poverty makes it hard for people to trust others. And that's where we might start to have an argument. Somebody might say, no, I don't agree with that. I've lived in poverty and I had to trust people. There was no other choice. So again, if somebody might argue with it, again, that's where you're succeeding. Let's take a look at this one, theme statement. These 3 poets all discuss the effect of racism on people, or racism makes people angry, or racism is hard to deal with. We want to move away from those. We know that to be true. It's a given that it's miserable and a horrible thing to experience. And we want to move towards something that's more arguable, like the thesis statements. These three poets all discuss how racism makes its victims angry enough to be violent. And that's where we can disagree. I know lots of people who have dealt with racism their entire lives long, and they're dedicated pacifists. They would never be violent. So in those cases, then I would have a reason to argue with you, which is what makes it a good thesis. Okay, and so we are looking for things where we can argue. So you're going to have to be bold, and you're going to have to trust that your argument is not going to, upset somebody. We've got I read a quote today that reminded me that you never leave solid footprints for others to follow if you tiptoe your whole life. So let's leave some solid footprints in the sand here and make a thesis statement that really takes a stand and makes an interesting argument, something that somebody might argue with. And again, I'll let you look at those in some more detail. I am going to go over the poetry theme requirements with you as well. We are working on this essay, and you're turning in a draft this week. And the poetry essay must be a minimum of 5 paragraphs. It could be more. If talking about one of your poems gets kind of involved and you end up having like 20 sentences, maybe break that into 2 paragraphs of 10 sentences each instead of having a really, really long paragraph. One second, I'm going to pause. Okay, so the essay must have these elements: a thesis paragraph, 3 body paragraphs, and a concluding paragraph. All paragraphs should be at least 10 sentences in length. It must be a minimum of 750 words altogether. It should be more. A lot of my 102 students find that this one goes over 1,000 words, and that's to be expected in a well-developed essay. Students must use 3 separate poems for this essay. You must devote at least 1 full paragraph to each poem. Students must use at least 2 authors for this essay. You may not use all 3 poems by the same poet. Students must quote directly at least 3 times from each poem. Keep each individual quote short and put your analysis between quotes. Do not quote more than 4 lines of poetry at once unless they are very short lines. Students must provide in-text citations for every quote. They should be in this format, lines 1 through 3. Students must use a slash to indicate where the line breaks in the original poem's fall. So much depends, /upon. Students must include a works cited list at the end of their essay, and there's a handout for formatting your works cited list. Most students will be using the online version of the poems, so you should follow that model. Essays should be carefully edited for spelling, grammar, capitalization, punctuation, spacing, and format. Of course, that is more for the final draft than this draft. In this draft, we're working on development and quote use and that sort of thing. The next thing we're going to look at is that sample student essay. I think you have a video going over just that by itself, but we'll check on that. Okay. So you have a quiz this week on theme versus thesis. That's going over this. And you have a draft to do. There's also a handout on the works cited list for poems. And let's take a look at this together as well. And this tells you what the works cited list should look like and gives you a sample works cited list. So down at the bottom is a sample works cited list. This is what yours should look for. Now, if you did buy a paper copy of this text, it would look different. But almost all of you are going to be using this works cited list format here at the top. I found this format here online, and you can follow that list and look at the same things I looked at for MLA style. The works cited list entries should include 6 elements: the author's name, the poem title in quotation marks with the period inside the quotation marks, the website title in italics, and notice it's not poemhunter.com and it's separated into 2 words. And this is Academy of American Poets, all separate words, not written out as a URL. So make sure that you look at the title of the website, and if you can find the title rather than the URL, please use that. It's not asking for the URL, it's asking for the website title, and it's a little bit different. You have the date the poem was posted if it's shown. Now for this one it's shown, and for this one it's shown, but if you don't have that, please Google the year that the poet published it originally and just put that year there, please. The publication medium, which is web, so that should look right like this right here. It's missing from this entry and it should be here, so make sure that that's corrected. And the date you accessed the poem. Now here that says February 4th, 2020, but we're in 2021 now. Please make sure that you pay careful attention to punctuation. There's commas and periods, and the order of them matters, and when they're not there, they shouldn't be there, and when they are, they should be. So please make sure that you are following this model. If it abbreviates a month to 3 letters, so should you. So you're following that pattern really carefully. MLA does not require the use of URLs or web addresses because they're ephemeral and often unwieldy. That means that they're hard to manage in terms of making your entry look good, and it can be a broken link in the matter of a week. So we're just not using them. You alphabetize the entire works cited list and use a hanging indent so that every reference, all lines after the first one are indented a ½ inch. The easiest way to do that is that when you are typing, let me enable editing here. When you're typing, you simply type it all in one line, and this will be a good opportunity for me to fix this error as well. Right after this, it should say web. And then you make sure you've made all your corrections, and then you just put your cursor at the end of the first line and hit enter and tab. So again, make sure you are following that format real carefully. Be very picky. I would print this page. I'm gonna, there we go, save that and replace the existing file. Okay. All right. So here we are back in Blackboard, and we have gone through this. And we've gone through this, and we've gone through this handout. You have a quiz on that. Your discussion board is your works cited list this week, and we're going to help each other with that, so you'll have feedback on that. And then there's that poetry essay draft. Now remember, in week 3, we went over the readings. Make sure that you're watching the video helping you understand the poems. Some of you did not, and it showed. For the first set, so please make sure you're going over and watching the videos where I've helped you talk about and understand the poems. We've gone on, there's a video on how to quote poetry in particular and on using quotes in general. And make sure you're watching that instructional video. And then I'm going to add a video to this week on how to use the sample essay as a model. So make sure that you are watching that video so that you know how to use the sample essay in week 3 as a model for this draft. All right, that should get you through the week. Remember, you have help sessions available if you're finding this week to be a big leap in what I'm asking you to get done. You should have feedback from me on last week's work by the end of Tuesday. Tuesday is a big grading day for me. So just look for that and make sure you're looking at the feedback. Please remember that even someone who got a 10 out of 10 on an assignment, if you have feedback, that feedback is telling you things that you need to do and change in order to continue getting good grades. So don't just say, oh, I got a 10 out of a 10, don't need to read the comments. You absolutely do need to read the comments in your grade book if you want to continue getting strong grades. All right, reach out to me if you need help, and I can't wait to read your draft.